The Answer.
Back going to get down to business. Thrilled to be joined by Merrill Matthews, resident scholar of the Institute for Policy Innovation in Dallas, Texas. Merrill, thank you so much for joining us on Get Down to Business. The agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, an agency which many conservatives don't believe should exist, have released some new policies that many of us, myself included, believe are going to crush working families and small businesses. Tell us a little bit about your studies on the subject and why the policies should be relooked at.
Well, the environmental protection, Congress passed legislation in 2007 that requires gasoline to have what we call the renewable fuel standard, a certain amount of ethanol. That has been about 10% of our gasoline, and the EPA was required by Congress to come back and study this every 3 years to see if that was if expanding ethanol in the gasoline was actually benefiting the environment, benefiting consumers, and so forth. So the EPA released its first study on that in 2012 after the legislation passed. It's supposed to have released its second study, and it just simply hasn't done that. So it's been called on the carpet, and the Inspector General of the Environmental Protection Agency has said, we just simply are not in compliance with the law to let people know if the ethanol that we're putting in gasoline is in fact benefiting society. And that's an important issue because back in the mid-2000s, environmentalists typically thought ethanol, basically corn-based ethanol that went into was to be burned in cars and gasoline, would actually be better for the environment. And now increasingly we think it probably isn't. And the other issue was our oil production was declining back in the mid-2000s. We're actually increasing our oil production now. We're the largest producer of oil in the world.
Well, we've nearly doubled since 2005 in terms of our daily crude oil production, and there's an unprecedented production boom, and I believe we're well underway towards total energy independence. So for all those reasons, the renewable fuel standards don't make sense, but let's touch on the small business angle of this. Why will the EPA's new policy, new standards, which certainly are not moving in the direction that they should in addressing the production boom, but sort of are focused on the old data and the old sciences? Why is that going to hurt working families and small businesers?
Well, to begin with, the oil and gas industry is one of the highest-paying industries out there, and a lot of the wildcatters, those who go into and drill in shale oil and gas, they are usually small companies that are doing that, and that's where the explosion is. Now, they had cut back a little bit as it ended the last year and beginning of this year, simply because of the price of oil going down, but they're actually coming back in now. If you were to eliminate that ethanol mandate in there, 18 billion gallons of ethanol is having to go into our gasoline. If we eliminated that, you would find that you would have there would be a bigger need for oil and gas. That industry would begin to pick up. The increased demand would raise the prices. Corn would still be in demand out there. Prices would probably fall a little bit, but corn would still be in demand, and prices for products that have corn in it would probably fall, so that would help the consumers.
And obviously, for small businesses, well, we're here in Illinois, but really around the country, I know states like Tennessee, in particular, have you've written about that in the past, and so much of the economy is based on this. So renewable fuel standards is certainly something that is actually going to hurt our economy. And what would you propose for the EPA at this point? If they could roll it all back, and if they could say, let's do this over, and let's look at the current data, let's look at the current production boom that really is taking place, what would you recommend?
I I would recommend that the ethanol become a voluntary deal. The people who support ethanol say consumers like it. They say it lowers prices on gasoline and other things. Fine, if that's the case, then consumers would demand it in their gasoline. My guess is if the ethanol were voluntary for gasoline, most consumers wouldn't care and would actually choose just straight gasoline rather than ethanol mix. So I would make it a voluntary thing. That was incidentally something that Ted Cruz had proposed, just making it voluntary rather than the mandate they have right now. And the problem we have is the mandate keeps growing. We've got 18 billion gallons now, and the mandate keeps growing to more and more, so that we're going to get past to the point where we're going to have so much ethanol in the gasoline that we're going to be hurting our car engines.
Well, Merrill Matthews, resident scholar at the Institute for Policy Innovation, certainly that proposal of voluntary ethanol is certainly something unique, and as you mentioned, former presidential candidate Ted Cruz proposed this, and it will be interesting to see what the EPA follows suit on over the coming months and in an upcoming administration. The EPA certainly needs to innovate in order to help working families, in order to help small businesses around our country in states like Illinois and beyond. Merrill Matthews, thank you so much for joining us on Get Down to Business.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, we're going to be chatting a little bit about travel, both within the United States and internationally. And we'll be joined by Mordechai Charka. He'll tell us some tips and certainly share with us where you should be looking to save and earn. Get Down to Business is powered by our good friends at Tandem HR, your solutions center. You can find them online at tandemhr.com or give them a call, 630-928-0510. And speaking of tips, they've got a lot on their websites. Don't touch that dial, Chicago. You're listening to the show all about small business.